Welcome to Ground Zero, the clash of punk rock and politics. You are about to enter the Remso Republic.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have returned. Season 2 is here. Welcome once again, all newcomers, all oldcomers. Is oldcomers a word? I don't know. We make up words here. If you already knew that, great. If not, welcome. I'm your host, as always, Remso W. Martinez, and you're listening to the one, the only Remso Republic. Thank you so much for joining in. I wanted this to be an easy episode so that newcomers and people that are just tuning in for the very first time can kind of catch on with everything. But at the same time, I also want to let you know that we are pushing forward constantly. Last season's theme was all about the election, just getting through the election and everything else. And thank God that hailstorm is just past us. We can move on. If you're like me here in Virginia, you've got to worry about the governor's race and the state senate race coming up in about 6 months. But for the rest of the country, let's just kind of take things down a notch. If you've been following us on social media, you know we've got kind of a retro theme going on for season 2. We're trying to get back to basics. The basics are this. This is a generation of people that everyone's trying to define. It's the millennials. It's everyone who they're trying to just really get down. They want to nail a definition in on this. But millennials, they're random. No one knows how to define them. Everything's just kind of out there. Are they more socialist? Are they more libertarian? Are they one way or another? I don't know. But what I do know is this. There's such a large portion of you out there that want to get involved in activism. When I started this program, it was all about empowering people with the connections and the opportunities out there to hopefully empower some of you to go do amazing things. Some of you have already contacted me and let me know how the show's impacted you, whether or not you might run for office or you're going to start your own show, which would make you copy me. But then again, some people say I copied our guest today. He's the inspiration for the show. He's the original Lion of Liberty, ladies and gentlemen, Marc Clair. Marc, how are you doing?
Remso, I'm doing great, and as you know I always am, I'm ready to roar. I'm ready to roar about liberty with you.
Hell yeah!
Rawr!
All right, man.
That was actually a weak one. I feel like I was just choking on a hairball there, but, you know, the spirit's there.
We'll let it slide. The intention was good.
You know, you got you millennials. You guys are the ones with the strong, you know, the strong lungs. My old and decrepit lungs just don't have that roaring ability that they used to back in the day.
How are we supposed to cry for our welfare checks and free college if we can't, you know, be heard?
Yeah,
it's one thing or another. Speaking of which, Marc, this is awesome because for those of you that listen to season 1, you know that Marc Clair was our very first guest on the series ever. So just want to give you guys kind of a treat. And for those of you that are just tuning in, Marc Clair is the OG Libertarian. Unless you came in when Bill Weld was coming, which is basically
I was going to say, I heard that was Bill Weld, but I don't know. I'm not sure which of us was around first.
You know, this is, by the time this is coming out, it's already 2017. I think we need to come up with a name for Bill that doesn't explicitly say him because I don't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing that his name is still being said out there. We need like his own version of Voldemort in a way.
I got it.
What is it?
Hear it?
Do it.
The faux Libertarian.
Holy shit.
I just came up with that
perfect.
Just now. That's on the fly, folks. I was not prepped for this at all.
That's like divine providence. The faux Libertarian.
I think we've got it.
It's down, Pat.
So we'll never say the name. I'm not even going to say it now. Just from now on, the faux Libertarian. We'll know who you're talking about.
It is written in stone. It's permanent. Outstanding. So, Marc, just going into this year, I'm always excited when one election ends, and then we just have to kind of look at the aftermath. What inspires me are the number of, let's call them baby libertarians that are out there. There are a lot of people that came into this recently. They saw the giant nonsense we saw for the last year and a half. They understand the ideas of individual autonomy, of limited government, of free markets. They want to get involved. And what I'm telling a lot of people that are contacting me about this is you don't need to just join a bunch of activists. You don't need to just join the Libertarian Party. It's about finding your own niche. I think everyone is good at something, and when they find that thing they're good at, once they really dive into it, they go ahead and they do amazing things. You did that with your podcast. So just to give people kind of like a little backstory, you know, the Marc Clair origin story, what kind of inspired you to get involved in all of this, and what made you eventually do a podcast?
Sure. Well, I could spend probably an hour just going through my history of libertarian thought, but I'll try to give the elevator speech version here. But I mean, essentially, I had been reading the writing of Ron Paul since the early 2000s, not to age myself too much, but a good friend of mine who's a contributor to our show now, Howie Snowden, he was a friend of mine in college, and he actually was a congressional page in Congress in high school, and he actually met Ron Paul. He would tell me about this guy, Ron Paul. He didn't work for Ron Paul, but he got to know him, and he would sometimes go hang out in his office and talk about liberty. And I was just blown away by this guy, by my friend saying that he used to talk to this congressman. I just thought that was so interesting and weird. Like, I always picture congressmen on this totally different level than regular people, and yet here was my friend who actually like had talked to this guy, and he sent me his column, his Texas Straight Talk column, and I just started reading that, and that was the first thing that really got me thinking about things in a different way, because even though he had that R next to his name, he would always really look at things through the concept of individual rights, not through the Democrat prism or the Republican prism like every other politician out there. He actually seemed to criticize Republicans even, which I couldn't believe coming from a Republican. So that's what really got me down that path, you know, thinking about things differently, thinking about things through individual rights as opposed to through a left-right or a Republican-Democrat spectrum. And over time, that, of course, led me to think about things differently. I wasn't very hyper-political for a long time until, of course, Ron Paul announced he was running for president in 2007, at which point I said, wait a minute, and now this guy's running for president? You got to be kidding me. Too bad it's never going to go anywhere. But it did tend to go somewhere, even though he didn't become president. I think it actually exceeded my wildest expectations because he really did launch a movement, and that's something I certainly got sucked up in, and I pulled some friends along with me. So I started to influence some of the people around me, some people that I was good friends with from back in my college days, and at some point, now we all went to Penn State, so that's where the lion comes from, and at one point we just decided, you know, we were sending all these emails back and forth, we were having a lot of conversations, so one of us just said, why don't we put up a website and put some of these conversations out there? So that's all lionsofliberty.com was at first. It was really just our blog site. I had never really even thought that it would turn into a podcast, and now that's primarily what it is we do. But that really did, the podcast part just came about because I started listening to podcasts. It became my primary form of entertainment. Whether I was out walking my dogs for an hour or two, I've got huskies, they need a lot of exercise, or whether I was just doing chores, I found myself always listening to podcasts all the time. So it only seemed natural to me. And at this time, there really weren't libertarian podcasts. There were some. I think Cato had a podcast. Maybe Lou Rockwell had been doing his show then, but I wasn't getting what I wanted from a libertarian podcast. I think that's the real thing that inspired me to start doing it on my own. This is even before I think myself and Tom Woods launched our shows around the same time, but this is before his show had really started going. So to me, I really wanted to create the show that I wanted to listen to. And I think that is the best way to look at a podcast, to figure out who you are, who similar people to you might be, and make that show for them or for you, depending on how you want to look at it. And that's really how the ball got rolling.
Exactly. And this is kind of a weird time. It's like we've kind of, you know, had our through the looking glass moment. And for the first time, at least that I can remember, people actually know what a libertarian is. There are a lot more people now that identify as libertarians than there were in, let's say, 2012, 2013, when I started getting into it, especially 2008, when you were getting into it. I mean, did you kind of feel like you were speaking in a vacuum? Like, were you just kind of reaching out there saying, I really hope someone is interested in my content? What was it like back then?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't actually start our website until like 2011, but I mean,
gotcha.
even at first, my first form of activism at the time, this is really going to age me, is I would post Ron Paul videos on MySpace. I don't know if you remember that website. Yeah, but
is that
for
like
the youngins out there,
RoboCop's Detroit right now?
Basically, yeah. You pretty much summed it up. Yeah, the precursor to Facebook, you might say. All the kids were on MySpace in the mid 2000s, I guess, and that was really all I did. I mean, there were so many Ron Paul videos at the time, whether it was old speeches people were posting, clips of him skewering Rudy Giuliani at a debate. I would just post this stuff, and most people thought I was crazy, but some people actually responded positively, and then one of those was Brian McWilliams, a good friend of mine. So I realized then maybe I had a kindred spirit with him, and I started to realize I can actually influence people myself over time. I don't need to just show people a Ron Paul video. I have thoughts. I have done a lot of reading. I've put a lot of thought into this. I have a voice too. And I think that's what led to our writing and what eventually led to the podcast. You know, the at some point you have to do more than just point people to a 1,000 page tome. You can't just tell everyone to go read Man, Economy, and State. You can't even just tell everyone to go watch these 1,000 Ron Paul videos. You have to develop your own voice. You have to have your own ideas and your own way of explaining things. And I can't even say I fully had that before I started the podcast, but in many ways, doing the podcast and forcing myself to have that voice is what gave me the voice, is what helped me develop the voice, because I didn't know what was going to happen when I turned on that microphone one day. And if you guys go and listen to episode 1 of Lions of Liberty, you're not going to hear a smooth program because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had no clue. I pressed record and started talking. But over time, by forcing yourself to do it, you develop a voice. You start to refine the process. You start to figure out what works and what doesn't. And, you know, that it pretty much goes from there. You're never going to have it all figured out before you start. And most likely you're going to have nothing or hardly anything figured out before you start. Luckily, there are a lot of resources people can use to learn from. And a lot of people like myself who went through the process and went through the hard times that can give people advice about it. But at the end of the day, you're not going to learn any better way than by doing.
Exactly. Mark, we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break. But before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to our affiliate sponsors, Libertarian Country. Folks, it's that time of year where you kind of got, like, let's say if you're like me, maybe you got socks for Christmas or something. Maybe you got some stuff from people that you're just like, oh, thank you, but you want to go sell it or return it and maybe get something that you really want. Well, let me tell you, Libertarian Country is probably one of the coolest libertarian outfitters out there. I recently got the Statue of Liberty holding an M16. It's just straight up Liberty gangster. Go ahead and check them out. And if you want to help support the show, go ahead and check out our sponsors tab at www.remsorepublic.com. And each time you make a purchase using our affiliate link through Libertarian Country, a little bit comes back and helps the show. It helps us get great guests and great content, helps me spend more time investing in awesome things for the show instead of going out and finding sponsors. Go ahead and check out libertariancountry.com. If you want to check out the show, check out our support tab on remsorepublic.com. Give us 1 minute and we'll be right back right after this commercial break.
The voice of the Liberty generation, Remso W. Martinez.
Take the show on the go by subscribing to the Remso Republic on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, and YouTube. Don't be left out.
What are they teaching our children these days? How can so many young people graduate and become socialists? Do they even know what socialism is? Kids are learning how to preserve the environment, but are they learning how to preserve their own liberty? How about introducing your children to, I don't know, these fundamental principles that helped create the greatest, most prosperous nation in the world? I don't know about you, but when I become a parent, I'm going to read my kids The Chronicles of Kibblestan by Andrea Rand. A little bit of Narnia, a little bit of Atlas Shrugged. Kids are loving this exciting saga about a fantastical land's struggle to be free. Filled with humor and suspense, Kibblestan is a treat for any kid, or even adults. I mean, I enjoyed reading it. It's for anyone that enjoys reading fantasy. But also, it has the added bonus of introducing some basic principles of liberty as it constantly ponders the question, what does it take for a land to stay free? There's even questions at the end of each book to facilitate conversation with your children, including a student group or a book club. The Chronicles of Kibblestan by Andrea Rand is currently available on Amazon.com, or you can visit www.kibblestan.com. Liberty is worth preserving. Are you in? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We have Marc Clair from the Lions of Liberty. So, Marc, I've got kind of an announcement for you. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. Let's hear it.
Okay, so just like you kind of inspired me to kind of go on my own and kind of start this, let's just call this little project here and there, the Remso Republic, you became a podcast grandfather recently.
I did?
Yeah, apparently there was a listener of this show that was like, I like what you're doing. If you can do it, anyone can do it. So I'm going to do it.
A high compliment.
Yeah, it was kind of like a backhanded compliment. I was like, what the hell?
If can pull it off.
Yeah, it's like if that loser can make something that sounds like a quality program, obviously anyone can do it. And I was like, what? I mean, I was flattered because, imitation's the most sincere form of flattery. But at the same time, I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And this guy's cool. I'm going to announce it later on in the season. Let's just see how things work out. But, I actually got a chance to sit down with him, grab some coffee, and I just kind of gave him the lay of the land. Now, over the last couple of years, we've seen just, I think it goes this way. Libertarians and socialists, and maybe the alt-right, they own a large share of the conversation online. And there are so many libertarian podcasts out there. It's just insane. When I started listening to your show, it was you, Freedom Report. I hadn't even learned about Tom Woods until like 2014, and I think that
when
was
you heard
it.
him on Lions of Liberty.
Exactly. That was probably it.
I'm joking, but that is so mind-blowing that someone can hear about Tom Woods from me. Like, that seems ridiculous. Like, it should go the other way around. And it has gone the other way around because Tom was nice enough to air an interview that I did with him on his show, and that was a huge boon to our program as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So one of the things I just told him just outright was, man, I just want you to know, it's going to be kind of tough because you're going into a pretty saturated market as it is in terms of like entertainment and news and politics. So I'm just curious, going into 2017, kind of looking through that looking glass again, do you think that libertarians are just going to like implode in a way and there's just going to be like thousands and millions of little libertarian podcasts taking a little bit from there, a little bit from there, and it's just going to become so boring that people just kind of tune out? Or are you excited because you think we're going to just turn into our own libertarian Fox News? I mean, where do you see the future in terms of just libertarian podcasting and media in general?
I do think that, I think things are going on the upswing. I mean, just looking at our own podcast numbers, they've gone on the upswing during the election time, and even here post after the election, our numbers are steadily climbing. And I think that people are thirsting for new ideas. I don't think this election has shut people down from politics. I think if anything, maybe one silver lining of a Donald Trump presidency is more people focused on the presidency, on the power of the presidency, on the power of government overall. And I think this really continues to give libertarians an opening to come in and provide some solutions, provide a different perspective for people. And I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, though, when we're talking about the podcasting thing, because, yeah, it's great that we all have this ability. Like, anybody can just up and decide tomorrow they want to start a podcast, and they can get it on iTunes, get it on Stitcher. But you're right to say that there is the concern of oversaturation. At some point there's going to be 1,000 libertarian podcasts maybe. So how are people going to find the quality ones or the good ones or the right ones? I mean, then there's no right or wrong answer there. But I think overall the good outweighs the bad, and it's not a bad thing that people can have their own voice, that people can start their own show. Not everybody's going to have the highest quality production. I mean, our show doesn't have the highest quality production it could have. I think we do a pretty good job, but I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a sound studio. I'm not putting that kind of money into it. I do take certain steps to make sure the quality is at a certain level, as you do as well. But everyone's going to be on a different level unless you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce the most professional sounding program that anyone's ever heard. But I think the fact that we have the ability to do this, and the fact that there are people that have out there that have been setting the example on how to do it and how to gain traction with people, I think it's only a good thing. And I think more Liberty voices out there, no matter if you get 10 downloads or 1 million, even 10 downloads is 10 human beings that have listened to your show and are maybe now thinking about things a little bit differently. So I think it's a wonderful thing overall. That we're not shut out anymore. They can't shut us out anymore. It used to be, to get your political voice out there, you had to go convince Clear Channel to let you have a show, or you had to go convince Fox News or whoever to let you have a show, because they basically controlled all the outlets that people watch and listen to. And that's just no longer the case. Cable ratings are just dropping, nosediving, and podcasting is still very young. It's exploding. But I think even as recently as last year, only something like 20 or 25% of people had even heard of a podcast or even really understood what that was. So even though people like us are listening to podcasts all the time, there's still so much room to grow as more and more people abandon the traditional methods and turn to alternatives. And once people realize how easy it is to go on your phone and click subscribe to a podcast, I can't tell you the last time I watched cable news or listened to the radio. It's been years, literally years, because why would I? Why would I, when I can open up an app on my phone and have such a great variety of honest voices, of true voices that aren't really compromised by whatever corporate sponsors Fox News has that day?
Yeah. Besides, we all just want that Stapleton money.
Well, yeah, that's where I was really going with this.
Yeah, really. But no, you bring up a good
It's true, though. I mean, there are different paths to success.
Exactly.
And then different ways to measure success. When you're somebody like Jason Stapleton, who is extremely knowledgeable, extremely talented, and built his own success prior to even the idea of launching his own show, and he was able to really build it quickly by putting so much money into it. I don't have the kind of money Jason has to put into it. So there are different tactics that a show like me is going to use. I'm not going to use the same strategies Jason Stapleton used, and I'm not even going to use the same strategies that Tom Woods used, because Tom Woods, he might not have the extreme money advantage that Jason had. I'm sure he's been successful in many aspects of his career, but he had a different advantage. Tom had the name recognition advantage because he had built up his name through many books, through becoming a New York Times bestselling author, and a lot of people knew who Tom Woods before his show started. When it comes to Lions of Liberty, nobody heard of us. Nobody knew who Marc Clair was when I put this thing out. So I had to take a much more different, much more organic, and much more kind of hitting the pavement path to growing the show.
Exactly. And I'm glad we brought up Tom and Jason. Those are two examples of people that once you kind of get into the weeds of what we're all about, those are kind of like the pillars of the best communicators of liberty out there. For a while, it was just like John Stossel on Fox. And the great thing about Donald Trump being president is that he kind of showed the media as what they are. But at the same time, I think conservatives kind of exposed themselves, because I think what we had a lot of on the right wing was we had kind of like a pundit complex. We had a lot of people that were really popular. No one really knows why. But, your Sean Hannity's, your Laura Ingram's, your I'm trying to think of the crazy chick that worships Trump, kind of like a North Korean dictator. Oh, what's her name? Ann Coulter. We have kind of these people out there that were kind of just riling everyone up. And now they've just kind of imploded, because it's like, what do you do again? Well, what have you done for the conservative movement? What have you done for the country again? I think a lot of them have been exposed, and even though a lot of people on the right are kind of celebrating everything happened since Republicans control every facet of government now, I think a lot of pundits have just kind of like dissipated. But what's great is that libertarians, we grew in recognition this time. So to actually have more and more people, and I have people on the right and the left that know who Jason is now. That was not the case even a year ago. I think that this will be great. And there are a lot of people in the liberty movement that are intentionally trying to set themselves up as kind of like the libertarian Steven Crowder or the libertarian whatever. So I think one of the biggest things that I've taken from this is that as we move forward as a movement, we can't lose quality in exchange for flash. So
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then that's the other thing. I mean, everybody can't, you don't want to try to be the libertarian Steven Crowder or the libertarian Rush Limbaugh. You want to be I don't even care if you put the label libertarian on front of it, but the first you. I want to be the first Marc Clair. You want to be the first Remso Martinez. We don't need to. Other people have set good examples in many ways, and of course, anything we do, we're going to pull some things from what we see working for other people and sort of build on that. But at the end of the day, it's really you're going to build a following. You're going to build fans because you became your own voice, not because you did a great impersonation of somebody else.
Exactly. I think the one thing that people need to give millennials more credit for, this independent voting bloc which is rising, we can spot the phonies. And I think that's one reason why Hillary Clinton did so poorly in 2016. She did not get that millennial vote. Don't get me wrong, she got more than Trump did in terms of voter turnout, but she was not Obama 2008. She wasn't Reagan 1980 by any way, shape, or form, because even Democrats who loved her, knew that she was crooked and that what you saw was not what was really there.
Yeah, I knew very few actual enthusiastic Hillary supporters. I knew very many enthusiastic anti-Donald Trump people who wanted to support Hillary, but that's a different thing. And the reason Trump won, the biggest difference I see here on the surface, Trump had an enthusiastic base that really wanted him to be president. Hillary had an enthusiastic base that really didn't want Donald Trump to be president. But you see the difference there. One's coming from a positive and the other is coming from a negative. Hillary, and I think I don't know if everyone says Bernie definitely would have won. I'm not entirely convinced of that, but I think people would have been excited to go vote for Bernie of people of that sort of belief system, whereas no one's excited to vote for Hillary. Come on. Even females I know who just really wanted to see a first woman president, they're kind of like, I guess I wish it didn't have to be her, but it is, so I guess I'll vote for her. The lack of enthusiasm was just incredible.
True. Mark, we're going to go ahead and take our final commercial break. Folks, hang on tight. We'll be back right after this commercial break. You're listening to the Remso Republic.
Remso in the mix.
Hello, my name is Alex Merced, and a great way to promote the libertarian message is through libertarian media, blogs, podcasts, videos. At libertarianwingmedia.com, it's an open-door policy for any libertarian who would like to contribute. So just email me at alexmerced@alexmerced.com and I'll set you up as an author. At libertariansocial.com, you can have a profile, create groups, become friends with other members, message other members, and post blogs. At libertarian101.com, you'll find several videos on pretty much any question you can think of and any issue libertarian. So check those out and make sure to subscribe to great libertarian podcasts, such as the Alex Merced Cast, the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, Lions of Liberty, and the Remso Republic. Thank you very much.
Folks, welcome back to the show. This is a time of celebration as we come into a new year, as we look forward to all the amazing things that are going to come about in 2017. But sometimes, old isn't bad. Just because something's been done doesn't mean it's dead. Which is why I'm bringing back a fan favorite, Political Word Association from Hell. Mark, the rules are very simple. I'm going to say a word. You say the first thing that pops into your mind. As we keep going, I'm going to get a little faster. The words might get a little bit trickier. If you mumble, fumble, fall, go brain dead, you lose. But if you keep going, you win the ultimate Remso Republic no prize, which is ultimate bragging rights. So, Mark, are you ready?
I am tepidly ready.
Let's begin. Chris Kyle.
Loser.
Chris Christie.
Big fat loser.
Rand Paul.
Kind of a dork.
Newt Gingrich.
Bigger dork.
George Bush.
Oh, he's become so lovable. I'm not going to lie if you take away all the memories of all his bad policies.
Alex Jones.
on New World Order.
Baseball.
Home run.
Johnny Rocket.
Cigarettes.
Podcast.
Johnny Rocket.
Bitcoin.
Scam.
iPhone.
My best friend.
Agorism.
Oh, distraction.
Democratic socialism.
Scary.
Steve Bannon.
Intriguing.
Kellyanne Conway.
Surprisingly sexy.
John Bolton.
The scariest man alive.
Jeff Sessions.
The second scariest man alive.
Melania Trump.
I'm not gonna lie. Sexy.
Michelle Obama.
Not sexy.
Arizona.
Scary.
Brexit.
Awesome.
Cal exit.
Not as exciting as Brexit. Potentially scary as well.
And finally, Harambe.
I got nothing on Harambe. I lose on Harambe.
I think, you know
I'm Harambe'd out, bro.
You know who ultimately loses? Harambe.
That's who loses.
God rest your soul, sweet prince, wherever you are.
That was tough, especially because I can't explain any of my answers. But that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, we've got a few minutes. What's one word that just, like, you just said one thing, but you kind of want to go on a tirade on? What's one of them?
Oh, let's see here. The Steve Bannon thing I find really interesting because when you actually look into the guy a little further, I'm not saying I think he's maybe a good guy even or anything, but it does seem that the smears that have been put out about him are kind of ridiculous. I mean, basically the general idea is, if anything that is non-PC was put on Breitbart, that means that Steve Bannon is a anti-Semitic racist or whatever. And I think this is the tactic of the left that they just spent like a year using against Donald Trump, and now they're going to use it against everybody he brings in. I really think people on the left or wherever they're coming from, they got to give this shit up, this identity politics shit. You need to focus on ideas, but these guys don't have ideas. They have ideas, but they don't have philosophy. They don't base their thoughts in reason. So all they have is petulant flouting. I mean, Jeff Sessions went after the KKK. He doesn't seem like anybody you could call a racist any more than you might say any 70-plus-year-old man in America might have some sort of latent racist thoughts simply because of the time they grew up in. But I mean, the fact that they're just using this smear on everybody, I think is just patently absurd. And I mean, there's plenty of reasons I don't like Jeff Sessions. They're more about my fears of how he'll attack the marijuana legalization and how he might try to ramp back up the war on drugs that we've been so successful in starting to wind down. But when everyone just yells racist, 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 especially when there's so many legitimate criticisms to bring on these guys, I mean, it's just not going to get them anywhere. Steve Bannon, I actually read this huge talk that he gave in 2014. And it's really, really interesting. The guy is a very complex person. He really does have an interesting view of the world. And I think we're all missing out on a legitimate conversation that could be had about his views simply because of all the nonsense and noise that surrounds it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it comes to Jeff Sessions, I think the most racist thing that someone has gotten him to come out and say, yeah, I did it, was when he referred to a black guy as boy. I mean, I lived in Alabama. That's just something that's there. It's not even inherently racist. And it's just, I mean, come on. I know so many white liberals who have said a black joke. Let ye who has not cast a black joke throw the first racist stone.
There you go.
Exactly.
And look, I was raised Jewish. I can't tell you how many anti-Semitic remarks and jokes I've heard from people I know on all sides of the spectrum, even just in regular life, non-political. And then people don't realize I'm Jewish because I don't look Jewish and I'm not really that religious, but I hear the stuff all the time and I know it's out there. And I'm not even upset about it. I don't think most of it is even ill-spirited. It's usually racist or anti-Semitic. I wouldn't even call them anti-Semitic, racist, Jewish jokes, stuff like that. Most of them, to me, they're making fun of stereotypes. Like, I can see the humor in a lot of this stuff. We don't need, we can be for the rights of every race and religion and still have a little fun sometimes, because we do live in a complex world. We live in a world where people have a lot of different views, many of them negative. So I think it's wonderful to make fun of that. And I don't even get offended by these jokes, but to act like the left or whoever is this very respectful culture who would never make fun of anybody's race or religion. Well, that's fucking bullshit. And you might need to edit that. I don't know.
Oh no, we're keeping that in.
Okay, well, I'll say it again. That is fucking bullshit. Wake up, people. You need to have better arguments than that, especially when I know that behind closed doors, you guys are saying probably worse shit than you're accusing Steve Bannon of vaguely maybe having been associated with by being a part of Breitbart. It's just stupid.
Yeah, and we're going to wrap things up shortly, but to kind of like touch on Steve Bannon, because I can't leave this alone. Yeah, here's the thing about the alt-right I've been discovering, and I think, okay, for listeners out there, I kind of looked through it. I was a lot harsher on the right than I was on Hillary. Here's the thing about Hillary. We already knew how terrible she was. That kleptomaniac and her freaking rapist husband. And I don't even know if Chelsea's like a human being or if she's a freaking host from Westworld. We already know how terrible they are. We know that even though that mafia syndicate might be done politically, there are still many progressives out there. I stand by what I say when I say that socialist preacher Bernie Sanders is one of the most violent people in America. But here's the thing about the alt-right. We don't know how to define it, but we know it's dangerous. And Mark, I think you're right. I don't think that Steve Bannon is racist. I don't think he's anti-Semitic. I think actually he's one of the smartest people in the United States right now. But here's what scares me about Steve Bannon. He's trying to chisel out, and he considers them imperfections. I think it's what makes the free market of ideas in the conservative movement, what it is when you have libertarians and you have traditionalists and you have anti-communists and other people that have this more laissez-faire approach to government, because I still think it's part of the GOP. I saw it when I was working on a Republican campaign recently. But Steve Bannon is trying to chisel away at everything he considers a threat to his closed borders, to this ethnocentric type of idea of nationalism he's trying to bring in. And I think it would be wrong to say that many of these racists, these white supremacists in the alt-right, aren't a representation of Steve Bannon, because I don't think he shares many of their beliefs. But here's the thing. He's able to use their fear. He's able to use what is important to them in order to promote his goals. And I don't even know what they are yet. But the fact that he's willing to align himself with people like that have hatred in their hearts and malice towards many, I think that's why he's probably the most dangerous person in the United States.
Interesting. I mean, and I'm still learning about the guy. Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think more so than maybe being racist, he doesn't care if someone is racist and supports him for that reason, or maybe might agree with him on certain things. I mean, he recently said, I'm not a white nationalist. I'm a nationalist. And I believe him when he says that. He's a nationalist who is white. But a lot of people immediately equate nationalism with whiteism or what have you. And I don't think that's necessarily Steve Bannon's view even. I think it's more cultural. I think he values Western culture. And look, you can interpret any of that stuff as racist if you want to. But if you want to take it seriously, you need to more closely identify it for what it really is. And I think a lot of even libertarian type folks might not be nationalists, but they might see nationalism as a better alternative than forced globalism, for example. So I think this stuff is really nuanced. And I think, again, when the left just shouts racism at everything, it just lowers the entire conversation, and it drowns out the legitimate criticisms of a guy like Steve Bannon or whatever policies Donald Trump might propose. I mean, I want to criticize Trump for like supporting torture and things like that. The left doesn't seem to care about that stuff, but they don't like that he, said something about Mexicans that Bill Clinton said the same thing, 20 years earlier, and it was fine.
Exactly. Mark, to kind of wrap things up, for all those baby libertarians out there that want to go and carve out their own piece of the world and do something amazing for liberty, what's kind of like your message, your testimony to them? What's one thing that you really want them to carry home? Do
something that you love. Like, don't force yourself. I mean, if you don't like listening to podcasts, don't start a podcast. Do something that you already love and let it come to you naturally. I mean, I didn't have a grand plan to start a podcast. I liked podcasts. I liked the concept of them. So I decided to start one and I came to love it. But if I hated it, I wouldn't keep doing it. So it needs to be something you love. And that might mean, changing your strategies and changing course a bunch of times. And even with the podcast, I made it into more of something I love. I started off pretty uncomfortable doing interviews. And I always wanted to incorporate my friends and the other Lions of Liberty. And that's what I've begun to do. And I think that has really helped even more to have a team of people who I'm comfortable sitting there with and talking with. And it's really helped make the conversation flow more naturally. And I really do enjoy just sitting on and talking politics for an hour with these guys. I mean, it's a blast and I love doing it. And I can't say I wouldn't want to do it, even if I didn't know that people were out there listening, as I do know they are. So I think once you find something you love and you can really turn it into something you continue to love, I mean, that's how you're going to be happy, and that's only going to drive you to keep working on it. So don't force yourself to do something you don't like. Don't think you have to start a podcast. You have to do a YouTube video. You don't have to do anything, but try to think of something you already enjoy either consuming or doing, and just maybe push that in a different direction.
Mark, if people want to listen to you and John Odermatt from Felony Fridays and catch up on everything Liberty-oriented on the Lines of Liberty, how can they do so?
Oh, there are so many ways. You can, of course, find us everywhere you find podcasts: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. There's all these other weird apps people use. I can't name them all, but if you search Lions of Liberty on any of them, you should find us. And, of course, you can find everything we do over at lionsofliberty.com, also on YouTube, youtube.com/Lions of Liberty. You guys know how the internet works. You can find us.
Marc Clair from the Lions of Liberty, thank you so much for coming on the program once again. It's always such an honor to have you on.
Remzo, it's been a blast, and I'm happy to be a proud grandfather soon, I guess.
More info to come on that soon, folks. Anyway, what can you do right now? Well, of course, you can always leave a rating and review on iTunes. You can catch us on Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, SoundCloud, all these excellent places, including Player FM, which we recently got on. Producer Ryan wants me to give a shout out to everyone listening in Kansas City, Kansas. So if you're a Kansas City guy or gal, what's up? If you're a Kansas City Royal fan like myself, hell yeah! We'll never win a World Series. But anyway, shout outs to my Kansas brothers and sisters. As always, it's never too late to do the right thing. Go be awesome, America, you sexy beast. As always, I'm Remso W. Martinez. Good night.
Stay connected to Liberty's Rabble Rouser on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with the latest episodes, blogs, and other available content. What are you waiting for?